Well, welcome to another news segment. I'm Kent Adams, and one of the things I get to do is to bring in friends and people I admire in this community. And one of them is our current, and for the last 8 years,
8 years.
8 years, our county prosecutor. And of course, he gets blamed for this and blamed for that and everything else that isn't his fault, okay? He's dealing with the state laws and local laws and all of that. And but what I do know is I remember meeting you, Larry, the first time when we were doing Boomer Radio 8 years, 8+ years ago. And I walked away from that going, this guy's got his act together and he cares about the law in the Spokane area. And that's what it comes down to. We can complain about this thing or that thing. But when you jump from caring about the law and carrying out the law for the citizens of Spokane County versus just the criminals, and that's what your opponent wants to do, is to let's go soft on crime. Let's give them all the help. And I'm not opposed to giving them the appropriate help and so forth. But we expect some changes out of that as taxpayers, don't we?
Amen.
Yeah, and that's your job, is to represent we taxpayers out there and those of us who vote for you, which will be the majority again. How's it going?
I think it's really going well. We have had this particular season, both pre-primary and post-primary, every organization, it seems like, across the board in the community wants to have either a candidate forum
Oh my gosh, yes.
or a candidate debate. So we've had a lot of opportunities to share our contrasting views of the statutory duties of the prosecuting attorney.
One of the things, and when you came in to do Meet the Candidate with Sulani Madsen, we were down at Dry Fly, and we did it there. And it was a small room, about the size of this part of the studio. And I sat by the door welcoming people coming in because I wasn't doing hosting jobs. I remember you being there. I also remember, because my back is turned to where it was being shot behind me, right? And I remember Deb Conklin, and I'm hearing, not really seeing, but I'm hearing what she's saying going, oh my gosh, such radical thinking. She really isn't in tune with what's going on. And since then, we've seen the national polls are worried about crime and the economy. The local polls and our local sheriff stood up and represented us in terms of being elected by all of us, but also saying, here's what we've got to do with Hope City or whatever it's called out there, which is a misnomer. I think there's a lot of corruption going on out there in addition to the drug dealing and so forth. Finally, we're seeing people stand up for us, for those of us. I've received phone calls from people with businesses out there saying, Kent, I saw what you have done on the report with Ozzy and with John Knowles and so forth. You hadn't been in until now, recently. And you don't begin to understand the problems that we face as residents and business people out in that area. And all of a sudden, it's like we've got to move forward. It's been almost a year since all these great ideas and all these federal dollars and state dollars have been come in to line someone's pocket, and that's what it's done. But I haven't seen much in terms of results. Are we going to get some results?
I believe that we will. And if it weren't for the fact that the sheriff finally was, really the first to stand up and say that he's going to take some action.
Yes.
And they had a discussion with the Board of County Commissioners, and they passed a resolution that authorizes my office to look at some options under the duties, both constitutional and the statutory duties of the sheriff. And I expect that something will be filed in a court very, very soon.
Do you? Okay.
And because of the fact that the sheriff has stood up, you now hear rumblings from the city, and you're also hearing rumblings from the Department of Transportation, who actually owns the property that the camp in question is sitting on. But it's a broader problem too, and that is
Yes.
because the residents that live in the area are also victims now.
Yes, they are.
They are being vandalized. Items have been stolen. They've been
Can't let their kids play in the front yard.
exactly. And in addition to that, some of them have had their gas tanks tapped, their diesel tanks tapped in a local business there.
Yes.
And eventually, businesses who are running a very fine profit margin right now are is likely to give up and move to another location. So it's I think it's the responsibility of all of us to take a look at what's going on both around the camp and inside the camp where there's multiple crimes daily. I talked to Chief Meidel and was informed that the calls for service for Spokane police to the area, not just the camp, but the
Right.
surrounding area, are up over 76% in the last 9 months.
Wait, up over 76% over the last 9 months.
Correct?
I mean, none of us want that to happen in our neighborhood.
No.
No,
We
it's-
don't want it in our community anywhere.
Well, no,
And
but-
there's human suffering going on inside. And now, like I said, it has spread now to victimization of surrounding residents and
Yes.
businesses.
Yes. So what's coming up? What can we, in addition to voting for you, obviously to keep strong prosecution going, but what can we as citizens, business owners, residents, what can we do to be supportive of this movement? I've never seen such reaction to what Ozzy put up, that the community kind of came out of the woodwork, if you will, and said, right on, Ozzy. And everyone seems to be, the business community now, not afraid to speak out.
Exactly. And for the public, first thing they have to do, especially if you live in that area, is you have to protect your property.
Yeah.
You have to act, with the knowledge that if you have something unsecured, if you have something that's valuable, if you have anything out there that would be a likely target for a vandal, you need to
Expect it.
take steps to protect that. In the meantime, though, writing to the city, writing to the county, writing to the state, particularly Department of Transportation, but just letting them know that there's an angry, concerned public out there that doesn't feel that enough is being done. It's unfortunate, but what you see is governments tend to respond to pressure from people. Sometimes they'll take action on their own, but again,
Yeah.
we wouldn't see even what we're seeing right now if it weren't for the fact that the sheriff stood up and said, I need to do something about this. We need to do something about this.
We really have not had representative government at the local level like we should. And because some of these city council members on the left and others have kind of been, well, we'll solve the problem. It's a homeless problem. It's this kind of problem. We just need more programs. We need we need some discipline.
We do. And we need accountability.
Yeah. What are you suggesting what else can we do to help? I hear that the sheriff's office and the police office, they went out and got depositions and so forth and all of that, and got a lot of them.
Yeah, and in fact, what I was told was they had printed so many, and then the public in the area
Made
got-
copies
they
and-
made copies,
yes,
and,
yes.
So there became many more duplications of the same form, and in many respects, they're all reporting the same types of problems
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
The other thing that we're prosecuting crimes that are occurring within the boundaries of the camp. And they're very difficult to prove because we have difficulty finding witnesses.
Yes.
We have difficulty getting them to be out of fear to actually be willing to testify. They're concerned about repercussions.
Yes.
And there's concerns about the security, I use the term loosely,
Yes.
that is out there as well. So there's a lot of challenges, but I think the public needs to become activists when it comes to stimulating the various levels of government to keep this movement alive and stimulate from the state on down the actions that are necessary to protect not only the surrounding citizens, but the people that live there. There's a lot of people that don't want to be there. They don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
And they don't want to become victims of crime. I can assure you of that.
Yes, and I've heard that over and over again. Outline some of the differences between you and your opponent.
Oh my gosh, where do you start? There are so many. Okay, so my opponent is a former deputy prosecutor from the Reagan era. She was, in 1983, she was hired by the Clallam County Prosecutor's Office. She left the law in 1987. There was a very significantly negative court case that was published naming her as having committed egregious misconduct in a statutory rape case involving 3 children. And because of her conduct, the case was dismissed. She was found to have been disingenuous at oral argument on appeal to the appellate court. And she was also found to have engaged with the custodial parents to not obey a court order that had been issued in the case. So all those things culminated in the dismissal. The 3 children involved got no justice. And of course, the perpetrator involved escaped justice. I don't know that there's a connection between her leaving and that court case, but they did happen. The court case was published in the same year that she left. Left the law entirely, went inactive, and only renewed her license, in her own words, to run against Larry Haskell. Obviously, you know, I've been a deputy prosecutor since 1998, and I've been elected since January 1st of 2015.
Right.
The amount of experience that I have, leadership, management, and training. In fact, one quote from my opponent, and I can prove all quotes it's because I went through and I listened to every word that I could find that she said in public, from Sulani Madsen's interview to Range.co to the various debates that we've done. But she considers prosecution is a lot like being a minister. You just do it in a little different way. I'm not there to be their minister. I am there to be their prosecutor and perform the statutory.
Our prosecutor.
Correct.
Yes.
And to do the job in accordance with the statutory scheme and constitutional safeguards.
Yeah. I want to, but I don't want to bring this up again. But it comes up every so often. Some of the things your wife said.
Yeah.
And I bring it up only because I know you, I know her, and that's not you, and it's not really her in so many ways either. But Leslie is a lovely lady, and isn't probably versed like you and I are with dealing with media and what to say and when not to say it, you know. And I think back to my wife, I'm going, oh, that might have been my wife saying things just off the cuff, you know, and so forth. Make your statement again, because
Sure.
I think it's important.
Sure. Well, I spent on February 11th, after that news broke, the Inlander put some things in there. They also put a lot of things in threads that had nothing to do with anything my wife said. But nonetheless, I spent the better part of 45 minutes apologizing to the media, the community,
Yes.
also my own office for the effect that had on them. But the significant aspect of it is twofold. Number one, we are watched over by the judges. We're watched over by law enforcement. We're watched over by each other.
Yes.
Every lawyer in the office has a duty under the ethical rules to report any ethical violations. There was a public records request done for complaints about Larry Haskell, and the answer was 0. And we never had anybody question anything we do. We actually commissioned an individual because they eventually brought a court case. They cherry-picked 24 cases that I had processed and or tried, and tried to get a judge to be able to. They brought Seattle area experts with them to show how racist Spokane County is, and the fact of the matter is the judge made specific findings that none of the affidavits that were filed with those 24 cases showed any evidence of lack of a factual basis for them, which is conduct, and then a further finding that the reports and the information that was provided do not lead to the conclusion that either Larry Haskell or his office charged based on racially motivated reasons.
Yeah.
So this issue with SCAR, and I understand there's another one out today. Their problem with me has nothing to do with my wife's comments. What it is I will not agree, and I've said this publicly and actually wrote to the paper in September or October of 2020, I wrote about equity in prosecuting standards. It's forbidden by state law as well as the equal application and equal protection sections of the Constitution. They believe that you can apply good racism to erase the effects of perceived bad racism, and somehow that's going to make everything better. I'm not going to do that. We don't apply racism to any decision that we make.
You apply the law.
We apply the law and the facts. It's about conduct. It's in the statutes. It's in the ethical rules. I do it that way. Everybody that I employ does it that way. And in fact, if somebody didn't follow those guidelines, we'd be having a nice long or possibly a very short talk about the conduct. So great kudos to my people, and we follow the rules, and I will enforce those rules. SCAR's problem with me is I'm not going to do the agenda that they're driving, and so they're spending a lot of money, and most of that, by the way, in the first round, and now in this second round, I'm quite certain, is coming from the west side. We did a little research on the donors to the SCAR publication, Bellevue, Seattle, trying to influence the outcome of a Spokane election. And in addition, since we're on that subject, my opponent, about a third of the money that she has raised comes from the west side as well.
Yeah. I'm tired of it all. As a voting citizen, as a father, as a grandfather, we want equal justice across the board.
Well, funny you should say that, Kent, because on the top of the United States Supreme Court, that's exactly what it says. Equal justice under law. That's what we make sure everybody gets.
Yeah.
And we're not going to deviate from that standard. They can slander my name if that's what they choose to do, but we will not change the course of the equal application and protection of the law in Spokane County.
Larry, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for standing up for us. Thank you for justice in Spokane County. I know once in a while people say, well, we need to do this. You're limited by the number of staff you have and the time you have and the court cases you can take to court. And you and I've had enough discussion over the last 8 years that you and your staff work hard.
My staff is busy, and I will tell you, they are among the most dedicated public servants I can find.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Kent.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Your prosecutor's office is staffed with nearly 150 dedicated, educated, and skilled professionals who work diligently every day to protect your safety and security. If I am reelected, I will continue to hire, train, and retain professionals such as these that uphold these principles. Lawlessness is not okay. Stand with me and send a message to Olympia that we will not tolerate more lawlessness in our community.